Hello, I'm Esther Guido-Yuot. Welcome to Africa 54. Here is what's coming up. Republicans shift their focus on Vice President Kamala Harris criticizing her work on immigration. Young African Leaders Summit continues in Washington, D.C. We'll have a live report on the day's proceedings. And a new World Health Organization report reveals an alarming spike in road traffic deaths in the past decade across Africa. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Republican nominee for U.S. President Donald Trump is now shifting focus to his likely opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris. VOA immigration reporter Aline Barrows says Trump's party is attacking Harris's work on immigration issues and calling her a border czar.
Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has switched his focus to Vice President Kamala Harris, his likely opponent in the race for presidency, criticizing her record on immigration.
She wants everybody to have amnesty. Then Joe Biden made her the border czar, and that's when it really got bad. She launched a colossal illegal alien invasion of a country. She said, come on in, remember?
Illegal immigration is a leading issue among Republican voters, and the Trump campaign tries to link Harris to Biden immigration policy by calling her his border czar.
She was never named a border czar. In fact, the border was not her issue priority at all.
Early in the Biden administration, Harris was assigned the task of reducing migration to the U.S. southern border in collaboration with Central American nations of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador.
She was in charge of developing a strategy and gaining commitments for development assistance and investment into those three countries of the Northern Triangle to help reduce the so-called push factors for migration.
After Biden asked Harris to spearhead a strategy to help improve living conditions and discourage migrants from leaving their home, Harris's immigration message became stricter.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
Trump says Harris's record shows she is ultra-liberal on immigration.
Kamala voted in favor of deadly sanctuary cities. She supports decriminalizing illegal border crossings, and she supports mass amnesty for all illegals. Think of that.
House Republicans last week passed a resolution condemning the Biden administration and its, quote, border czar Kamala Harris for failing to secure the border. Leading House Democrat Hakeem Jeffries says Republicans are lying about Harris because they have no plan to address challenges at the border.
And the vice president was not a border czar. They are making that up because they have no affirmative agenda, vision, or track record for the American people.
Immigration lawyer Hector Quiroga says that immigration reform is needed, no matter who is elected president.
We have over 3 million cases stuck in courts. There's not enough immigration judges. We've been saying that for a long time.
The Biden administration says it's making progress at the border, reporting that arrests for illegal crossings from Mexico in June were the lowest of any month during Biden's presidency. Aline Barrows, VOA News, Washington.
The annual Washington Mandela Fellowship Summit is celebrating its 10th anniversary this week. The program has inspired the young African leaders of tomorrow to create positive change for countless lives in Africa. On the continent, VOA's Anthony Labruto is live at the summit here in Washington with a look into today's proceedings. Hello, Anthony. What's the focus of YALI's summit today?
Hello, Esther. So today is day 2 of the YALI Summit here in Washington, D.C. A number of U.S. government officials are here speaking to the YALIs, ready to energize them, ready to help them build relationships and network. But to bring in Veronica here, actually to bring the ultimate authority to our answers here for what's happening the second day of YALI Summit. Veronica, how has the U.S. government officials here impacted the ability to do your work in the future?
Thank you so much for having me. The U.S. government, through this program, has impacted me so much that I'm able to connect with other young African leaders from Africa, from across Africa. I've met people from different countries, and together we're able to collaborate and work on issues that are common to all of us. For instance, my areas of interest are migration, human trafficking, promotion and protection of human rights. So I've been able to network and connect with a number of fellows here, and I've also networked and connected with the American, some of the Americans just here who are doing similar work as myself, in similar fields. So it's been very amazing.
And what does being a YALI this year mean to you?
For me, being a part of this leadership program means being able to tap into the skills that other fellow African young leaders have, being able to connect, being able to collaborate and work together, because I never foresaw for a day that where I would be in a room full of other young African leaders. But being here, this is really amazing. For me, it means networking, it means connection and working together. So I'm glad to be here.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And so, Trevor, I'd also like to invite you in here too to answer the same question. How has having this access to U.S. government officials impacted your work so far?
No, the U.S. government has managed to make us align with their policies and maybe to understand also where the African perspective in finding solutions throughout the continent to help. So they have been able to align and network with them and be able to create connections that will be everlasting in finding solutions for Africa.
And what's been the most favorite or best part of the summit today for you?
No, the best summit for today is probably the opening ceremony was great, and meeting some of the U.S. Senate Congress people congratulating us on the 10-year anniversary. That empowers you. That gives you that edge that you are doing something very good. And obviously, to everyone who's attending, 700 of us, it's a lot, but it's good for networking and getting to know people.
Oh, that's awesome. And especially the 10th anniversary. What does it mean for you, being a YALI here on this milestone?
Oh no, it means it's awesome that we are here on the 10-year anniversary. There is other calls that have come since 2014, but it also helps in networking with other African leaders who are or change makers. And this is the solution that we need to work together as a continent to find solutions that we can scale up within the sub-Saharan Africa.
And how are you hoping to utilize, I understand there's a number of alumni here from the program.
Yeah.
How are you hoping to utilize that network of people to help build your passion?
No, I've already started linking with a lot of alumni. They're doing some great work, and we are now leveraging as we trying to not only think countryside, but to think regional solutions. And some of them are already trying to collaborate as we go back and starting now in different businesses that are more inclusive rather than silo mentality. And we'll be able to co-create some solutions that might help our governments.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear.
Thank you.
So Esther, a number of exciting things happening here today, and we can't wait to keep going.
I can tell they really do have a competitive edge in joining prestigious colleges, even right here at in the United States, getting scholarships, doing wonderful things for the continent and the world. Thank you so much, Anthony. Anthony Labruto, live for us from the YALI Summit here in Washington. Now, Anthony Labruto also spoke to Terrence Favors, the coordinator for YALI in the Bureau of African Affairs at the U.S. State Department, for a look into how the program has changed in the past 10 years and how he sees the program evolving over the next 10 years.
Between those three different components of the program, we've reached more than 600,000 people, whether that's through our YALI network, through the Mandela Washington Fellowship, which is now going to have about 6,500 alumni, plus 700 new alumni at the end of this week. And we've seen amazing stories of people having great successes, making change in their community and doing really good work. We've seen really fantastic work of alumni reaching high levels in private sector, public sector, NGOs, international organizations, and really being able to to take their influence, take the leadership training and learning they've gathered from this program to take it back home with them. It is exciting to be here today to celebrate the first 10 years, and I think from the bipartisan support that we've seen in Congress, the longevity of this program, the high-level engagement that we've seen throughout the summits that we've had throughout the years, really does show how important this program is, and it really is something that invests in Africa's future. We look at the demographics and numbers and see how young Africa's population is and how important it is for us to engage with these young people. Whenever our high-level officials, whether it's the Secretary of State, the First Lady, the President, the Vice President, when they travel, they often meet with our YALI alumni in African countries. And so, I think that also is another piece of evidence that shows how important these people are and how they are representative of their communities and the work they're doing and the great success they've had.
YALI fellow Terence Favor speaking to VOA's Anthony Labruto. The situation in Sudan is catastrophic. Between war and natural disasters, the country's citizens are reeling. Thousands of people are stranded on the streets of the eastern Sudanese city of Kassala as a deluge of the rain compounds the suffering of more than 1 million residents who sought refuge in the region from a 15-month-old war. The rainy season that began earlier this month has damaged shelters, made roads unusable, and is putting millions at risk of waterborne diseases such as cholera, malaria, and dengue fever, and few medicines to treat them. More than 10 million people are displaced in Sudan, and that number is rising as the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces expands its territory in the war with the National Army. The war erupted in April 2023 and has triggered warnings of famine, and the United Nations is calling the situation in Sudan the world's largest humanitarian crisis.
Until now, we cannot find a place to stay in. We endured the sun beating down on us, but we can't handle the rain. We enter here, they get us out. This restaurant's owner let us inside, but we go out by morning. He tells us to get out, and we have young children. We got out.
The situation is not yet clear, with the increasing number of the displaced people who are being moved quickly. People are still in the streets. The situation needs a firm stance which is bigger than the capabilities of the state of Kassala. The central government must intervene, especially in terms of health and the humanitarian situation. The issue can lead to epidemics, which might cause harm.
The most recent wave of 165,000 people is from Sennar State, with many arriving on foot in the rain in the recent weeks. Human Rights Watch researcher Mohammed Osman says Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces have committed widespread acts of sexual violence in Khartoum, including gang violence and rape, forced marriages in its war with the National Armed Forces.
Rapid Support Forces in particular have committed acts of sexual violence in areas of Khartoum, definitely in the areas that they exercise control over. And it was a noticeable observation to see the connection between RSF occupying residential areas and houses and the uptick and increase of reporting around sexual violence, among other abuses. The sexual violence then became widespread, and we start seeing the trends of rape and gang rape, forced marriages and child marriages, and the abduction of women and girls in areas under the RSF control. One testimony, for example, were told to us that women and girls are under the threat of rape by RSF and by SAF as well. We are afraid all the time from RSF raids into our homes. We can't sleep from this fear. Daily there is a raid on a house. They try to rape a woman. They do not raid for just looting. They target specific houses because the women are there.
The RSF has controlled most of Khartoum and the cities Bahri and Omdurman since the opening days of the war in April 2023. The conflict erupted as both sides battled to protect their power under a planned political transition following the overthrow of long-ruling autocrat Omar al-Bashir in 2019. It's since stirred up ethnically motivated killings in the western region of Darfur, where the RSF and allied militias are accused of leading a campaign of attacks, including sexual assaults against the Masalit ethnic group. We'd like to hear what you think about Africa 54 and all our VOA Africa programs on our website at voaafrica.com. Still to come in our health report, the latest on road traffic death rates. Stay with us.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, for the first time in the history of the HIV and AIDS epidemic, the sharpest decline in new infections has been achieved in sub-Saharan Africa. But infections are rising in parts of the Middle East, North Africa, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, and Latin America. Can the HIV and AIDS epidemic be stopped? Join me, Vincent Makori, and my guests on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In other news, Morocco's King Mohammed VI has pardoned 3 journalists detained since 2021 on charges of sexual assault. Omar Radi Suleiman Raisoun and Tawfiq Bouachrin, who all deny the charges, were among more than 2,400 people pardoned to mark the monarch's 25th anniversary on the throne, according to a government official. Former South African President Jacob Zuma is no longer a member of the African National Congress. He has been expelled after throwing his support behind a rival political party and campaigning for it ahead of the elections in May. Zuma had been a member of the ANC since 1959. And a Congolese prosecutor is requesting death sentences against 25 defendants accused of belonging to M23 rebel group in a high-profile trial in Kinshasa. Only 5 of the accused are present for the trial in a military court, with the rest being tried in absentia. They are facing charges of war crimes, participation in insurrection, and treason. The foreign minister of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Therese Kayikwamba Wagner, is welcoming sanctions imposed by the U.S. government on 3 rebels, Corneille Nangaa, Bertrand Bisimwa, and Charles Sematama, all accused of instability, conflicts, and civilian displacement in Congo. Wagner spoke to VOA's Peter Clotty about the sanctions.
It is an important first step. However, we think more has to be done, again, in light of the drastic humanitarian situation of over 7 million displaced Congolese citizens.
You were quoted as saying that you intend to bring more proactive diplomacy to resolving some of these conflicts or to bring peace in the DRC. What do you mean by that?
I talk about being more proactive in our diplomacy. It's also bringing our stories closer to our different partners, to our different stakeholders that we engage on so many other issues. So this is one of the key elements. Being proactive also means sometimes starting difficult conversations. And I think this is one of the difficult conversations a lot of our partners and stakeholders have been shying away from. The fact that we have a neighboring country that in other countries is welcomed as a peace bringer, as a peacemaker, but is a warmonger in the Great Lakes region. It is a difficult conversation to have, but that's what it's about when you talk about proactive diplomacy. It's bringing also these issues to the table. And this is what I see as one of the key tenets of my vision and in my tenure.
Your government has called on the international community to put pressure on countries who are supporting the M23 rebels as part of the effort to bring peace to your countries, to the eastern part of your country. Talk to me about what the expectations of your government is regarding this.
I want to bring us back to something that we can all consider as objective, the last report of the group of experts, reiterating what we have said for a very long time, the presence of Rwandan Defense Forces on our national territory, uninvited, unsolicited, and in flagrant violation of all international humanitarian and other aspects of international law. So this is what we talk about when we want more from the international community. It is defending the standards that we have all adhered to. It is also upholding these values that we defend on other fronts, and the necessity to do that in the DRC, where we have 7 million displaced persons, and we have thousands of people that have been killed since the beginning of this conflict.
The Rwandan government has sharply denied involvement in the support of M23 rebels. The M23 rebels themselves have also denied that they are being supported by Rwanda. Some of your critics are saying this is an internal problem of DRC. The ongoing conflict in the eastern part of your country is an internal problem, and that the DRC should be able to resolve its own internal problems rather than accuse some neighboring countries of fomenting or supporting these rebel groups. How do you respond to that?
I want to remind you that we have a Luanda, the Luanda process that has been established as a diplomatic forum in which precisely this issue is being discussed. And we still adhere to it. Why do we adhere to it? Even if the flagrant violation of our territorial integrity, even if there are 4,000 Rwandan troops on our territory and over 7 million IDPs, we want a durable solution. This is why we go back to Luanda, because we are the ones who are burying our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, our fathers with this war. We want an end to it. It's been 30 years, and each year has been 1 year too much. So we are committed to finding a sustainable solution. The question that I want to ask you is if the other stakeholders, specifically Rwanda and its 4,000 troops on our sovereign territory, are also committed to peace.
Rwanda steadfastly denies accusations that it supports the M23 rebels and are rejecting U.S. calls for the withdrawal of troops and missile systems from eastern Congo, saying they are defending Rwandan territory. It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with an update on Mpox. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. The Burundian Health Ministry says it has detected its first 3 cases of Mpox. The announcement raises fears that a new deadly strain of the virus is spreading across the border into the Democratic Republic of Congo. Burundian authorities were alerted on July 22nd to 3 suspected cases in 2 hospitals, one in Bujumbura and another one on the city's outskirts. Formerly known as monkeypox, Mpox is an infectious disease caused by a virus transmitted to humans by infected animals that can also be passed from human to human through close physical contact. A new World Health Organization report reveals that road traffic death rates in the past decade are increasing significantly in Africa. Nearly 250,000 lives were lost on the continent's roads in 2021. However, global rates fell by 5% during the same period. Between 2010 and 2021, Africa recorded a 17% increase in road-related fatalities, according to the WHO Status Report on Road Safety 2023 for Africa. That's the latest update. Africa accounts for nearly 1/5 of all road deaths worldwide, despite being home to only 15% of the world's population and 3% of its vehicles. Joining us on the phone from Montreal, Canada, for more insight is Binta Sako, Technical Officer for the World Health Organization's Regional Office for Africa. Binta Sako, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Thank you for joining us via Skype, actually. Africa has less vehicles, but more accidents compared to other parts of the world. What do you make of this paradox, and what are some of the reasons?
Well, the reasons are very complex. In fact, like you said, we really bear a disproportionate burden of the road fatalities. And this has been the case for the past 10 or even more years as we're doing these reports on a regular basis. And when we look at the data, what we clearly see is that in terms of the recommendations and having a safe systems approach, the African countries are not really implementing at large scale. So we do see some improvement in some countries and some implementation of best practices here and there. But overall, I think the the region is really failing in implementing systematically and sustainably the recommended actions.
Tell us about the role of infrastructure and also vehicle standards when we talk about road safety.
I think all these aspects are really very important. You mentioned too the quality of the roads and the infrastructure and their international standards of best practice regarding the construction and the maintenance of roads. And the same goes for vehicles. The year of the vehicle. And let's not forget that Africa is really home to most of the second-hand vehicles. There's a large market for this. And most of the cars that we are entering in our region are substandard. So those are just two aspects of the problem. The problem is much more complex than that. And there's also, legislation around users, road users, such as wearing seat belts, drink driving. All those recommendations of best practice we've seen through the report are not fully embraced in the region.
As you say, it's a very complex problem with different steps in terms of solutions. What are the recommendations by WHO in terms of intervention that can really move the needle if we look at one or two major interventions?
Yeah, it's difficult to just find one or two interventions. I would say that really what's important is to adopt a safe systems approach. So looking at road safety in a very holistic way, looking at the users, looking at the infrastructure, the vehicle quality, and also the post-crash response is really a major difficulty that we're finding in the region, because that, fast response and, the best care possible will also reduce the number of deaths. So I would say it's really adopting a very holistic and systems approach that will make a difference. And some countries have already made good progress in reducing the number of deaths. So it shows that it is doable.
What are some of those countries?
We have about 5 countries in the region that have reduced by 30%. At the top of my head, I would say Seychelles, there's Cameroon, there's Mauritania, there's Congo, and there's Burundi. Those are the 5 that have really made good progress through political will, mainly, making it a priority in their countries and adopting a multi-sectoral and a multi-stakeholder approach as well.
Okay, Binta Sako, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on X @LenoreMoudou. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you so much, Leno. Be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health report every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.